Hi students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Victoria here in Western Canada. I hope all of you have had a great week and I hope you're looking forward to a fantastic weekend. Students, this lesson is an IELTS listening lesson. We're going to listen to a discussion on taxes and a lecture on Isaac Newton. This is listening part 3 and part 4 from our second exam in our exam books. I'll show you where those are in just a moment. We completed listening parts 1 and 2 of this exam last week. If you missed that class, not a problem. You can check out that live class video from last week, Friday. Okay. Welcome, Fuang. Hi, Anahinta. Hi, Elizabeth. Nice to see many of our members in the class. Welcome, Carolina, our chat moderator. You can ask Carolina questions as well about the IELTS, about our products. We have our products available for you on Shopify, on the YouTube channel. So you can get them from there. They're pinned to this live session. Welcome, Nipa Rupinder. And of course, as per usual, these live classes are powered by our websites, aehelp.com for academic IELTS and gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. We will use the websites today for the exam and for the listening materials. If you have premium access, that's great. You can follow along easily. If you don't, you can get the premium version of our course by clicking on this big red button here at aehelp.com. Right above my head. We're an IDP affiliate. We're a British Council partner. We're an IELTS test registration center. I'm a British Council agent, and I have been helping people with IELTS for over 15 years. We've got lots and lots of positive feedback from our users. You can check that out. They are all lovely, beautiful people, many of them now living and thriving in the countries of their dreams, whether it's US or Canada. And for the general IELTS, it's gieltshelp.com. It's the green background. Again, you can click that big red button there that's just right above my head. I see lots and lots of people joining all the time from these live classes, and that is fantastic, everyone. That's great. That's the right attitude, the right decision. It doesn't cost a lot. It's a one-time payment. It's a smart decision. We are here to guide you, help you throughout your IELTS learning process. Students, you can use that code NOVEL9. I showed you this last class also on the websites. You'll get an extra 10% little kickback there. And the apps that link to those websites are Academic IELTS Help, General IELTS Help. You can link the apps so that you can learn from either the app or the website. By the way, the website works on the phone also, just in case. Blogs we're creating these newer blogs. We just made a good one about introduction to IELTS. So if you're brand new and you're like, what is this guy talking about? What is IELTS? I just heard I needed to do it, but I have no idea what it is. There you go. It's this link here. Will tell you what IELTS is. And as many of you know, IELTS, the main part of the exam, meaning the listening, reading, writing, starts with the listening. So it begins with the listening. The Instagram profiles are IELTS_AEHelp and GIELTS Help. These Instagram profiles are very popular now, and we're always putting vocabulary and other information there for you. If you have a question, send an email, adrian@aehelp.com or admin@aehelp.com. We've got listening right now for subscribers. Of course, everybody is welcome to watch. Subscribing is free. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You will get notifications. You will get lots of free content as well. And tomorrow we'll do speaking part 2 for members and then speaking part 3 for everyone. So that's coming up tomorrow. The link for our latest video is right there in the chat. Check it out. It's a really good video, and we're looking for feedback. We're looking for lots of comments about this new subtitle style that we're using, where there's basically key vocabulary that's kind of just flying at the subtitles. Let us know what you think. Have some of you seen that? So Domenico, Elizabeth, Farouk's, Carolina, have you seen that new video? And do you see those shifting vocabulary in the subtitles that's meant for you to kind of pay special attention to those words and expressions and idioms? And if yes, what do you think about that? Are you like, no, it's really annoying, I can't pay attention? Or are you like, that's awesome, I'm learning so much vocabulary? Like, what do you think about that, right? Elizabeth Domenico says, yes, I've seen it. What do you think about that vocabulary aspect of the subtitles? I'm really curious about that. Okay, Elizabeth says it's amazing. Good. New and hi, yes, you can use conversational fillers as long as they're natural and accurate. Absolutely. Okay, good. Okay, so listening section. Everybody, we're looking at this listening test. Okay, so this is section 3, and it is page in your exam book. In the first exam book, it's page 123. For those of you that have access to our premium course, this is page 123 that we're looking at today. Okay. Sunny, you say you've made a payment for editing service. It's probably going to your trash. I'm pretty sure I've sent you that editing, and I even sent it to you a second time. You need to check your email. I think you might have your email inbox full. I believe you're the person where Google kept telling me that they can't deliver mail because your email inbox is full and it can't receive any more mail. So Sunny, check what's going on with your email. I'm glad that you mentioned that. Okay, because I think there's something going on with your email inbox. Check it out. I've sent you that task 1 multiple times. I believe it was on Music Media off the top of my head. Okay, so Sunny, another step you can do is send me an email from a different email account. Okay, you definitely have that ready, that task 1. Okay, Anna, thank you for the feedback. I see Anna saying that the video is lovely and you're learning lots of new vocabulary. That's really good. Okay, so hopefully everybody's paying attention to what I'm telling you in the chat there. Okay, all right. So Sunny, I heard what I really hope you heard what I just said to you, because I'm sure I've sent you that task 1 back 2 times now. Okay, and I keep getting some kind of weird situation. Yeah, your inbox can't accept emails. Okay, anyway, back to the point here. Thanks for the questions, and send me emails, students, and check your systems. Make sure you've got everything working on your end. Okay, so looking at part 3, one of the changes in 2020, they don't call these sections anymore for the listening. They call them parts. It's just kind of to not confuse you between the reading and writing sections. So they call them part 1, part 2, part 3. And you don't have the example for part 1 in the listening anymore. That's another change. But anyway, so page 123 and taxes for this topic. Remember that strategy I taught you last week? Look at the topics of each of the 4 parts of the listening section when you're hearing the instructions. So that's how we know that this part 3 is about taxes. And we also know that part 4 will be about Isaac Newton, which starts with this kind of flow chart. Okay? As soon as you see this kind of flow chart question, you have to realize that it's going to move quickly. Okay, so this will be coming in the lesson later today, but you already should be thinking, okay, that's going to be a very fast moving piece of information there for part 4 in this flow chart. All right, so a really good strategy or a tip that you should keep in mind for the listening section is to think ahead. Okay, in the listening, you're always trying to think ahead, not think backwards, not think, oh, did I make a mistake there, or what was that answer, but think forwards. Okay, that's a very important tip. Everybody got that? So, and you'll figure that out pretty quick when you're practicing at home, that if you're thinking about what just happened, you miss more questions, right? So my first tip for you today is always think ahead. in the listening, not backwards. You will have time at the end to review your answers and your questions and think backwards anyways, okay? So keep that in mind. So you have time at the end to think backwards. While you're listening to the audio, always think forwards. Okay, I think Abhi is saying, yes, yes, I really realize that, right? Anahita, absolutely. You should skim read the flow chart in the preparation time at least once or twice. Yes. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get closer to it. But when you have time, focus, and especially if you know that you are quite good in part 1, focus a lot on part 4, because the review time in part 4 is not enough to really review all the questions. For part 1, part 2, it is enough. So at the start, they'll say you have some time to review the questions for part 1, and you can review them. You have enough time. Same thing for part 2, same thing for part 3. But for those of you who have done some practice exams, you probably realize I can never review all the questions for part 4. Okay, so this is another good tip for you today, is any extra time you have at the start of the listening section, like with the instructions, use it to review part 4, because you just don't have enough time. Even if you're a fast reader, like I know for myself, I read quite quickly, and it's still very challenging to read all of part 4 before the audio starts. So when they say you have some time to review part 4, well, thank you. You gave me like 10 seconds to read a whole page, because you just don't have enough time to review the questions at the start of part 4. Okay, does that make sense, everybody? So Summit, that's awesome. Congrats. Fantastic. Love it. Okay. Sunny is just saying, Summit is just saying, I received my USA visa, study visa. Thank you. That's awesome, Summit. You're very welcome. Send us a testimonial. Okay. All right. So without further ado, let's jump in. Let's do the listening. So we're going to listen for part 3 first, about taxes. Okay, now we're going to jump to the website for this in just a moment. I'm going to put on my headset and I will guide you. So to show you kind of the speed, the rhythm of the listening section, I will guide you through this. Okay, and follow with me. Answer the questions as you hear them. So this is practice. So answer the questions. Don't put your answers in the chat. Put it somewhere else. Let everybody figure out the answers for themselves. We'll go over the answers after, and I will give you more strategies and tips as we go over those answers afterwards. So we're going to start with part 3 with question 21 here. And when you look at our exam books, you're going to see that it says CD3, track 3, right? So we go to the website. Again, for those of you that want to join the premium version of our course, you click the big red button there. You join the premium version. And then you get into your My Student account. In your My Student account, you have computer-based practice tests. You have speaking for partners that you can find. You've got an interactive course. And down here, you have your audio CDs. In your audio CDs, we're going to go to CD3, track 3, and we're going to start listening. So here we go, okay?
Now turn to section 3. Take some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Listening section 3. You will hear a public forum discussion between the moderator and 2 contributors, Dr. Philip McPhee and Dr. Ron Tatum, both political scientists at the local university, talking about the nature of taxes in society. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
First of all, I would like to thank Dr. McPhee and Dr. Tatton for taking time out of their busy lives to spend this evening with us.
Thank you for having us.
Dr. McPhee, could you give us a little bit of the history of taxation?
Certainly. Taxes have been around almost as long as civilization itself. There are records of taxes being collected by Egyptian pharaohs approximately 5,000 years ago. It was customary to give 20% of your production to the pharaoh, and those who evaded taxes were severely punished.
Dr. Tatton, what are the reasons for taxes?
Well, there are essentially three major reasons for taxes. The first and most obvious reason is revenue. Governments need money, and taxes fulfil this need. The government then spends this tax revenue on investments that are good for society, such as healthcare, schools and roads. Funding the army would fall under this category as well. The second reason for taxation is for the redistribution of wealth. In simpler terms, this means taking money from the rich and giving it to the poor. Many societies do this out of a belief that it is the responsibility of the government to look after the poor people in society. I'll let Dr. McPhee talk about the final reason for taxation, called repricing.
Thank you, Dr. Tatton. Yes, the third main reason for taxation is called repricing, and by this we mean changing the price of a product to a different, generally higher price. This may sound quite strange, but if you bear with me, you'll see that it makes perfect sense. In general, products are allowed to be priced in a free market. That is to say, whoever can provide goods for the lowest price is the most successful. However, there are certain types of goods that we don't allow to go to the free market. In many countries, these are goods like tobacco and alcohol. These goods are subject to a repricing tax, which is used to discourage people from using the product. Also, these repricing taxes help offset the future medical costs associated with the people who use tobacco and alcohol excessively.
You now have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen to the rest of the discussion and answer questions 27 to 30.
Very well. Do you favour higher or lower taxes?
I am a strong proponent of higher taxes. The reason for this is simply that it is easier to make money when you already have money. This gives a massive advantage to those people who may have inherited money or come from rich families, because money is so much easier to gain for these people if used wisely. Taxing them seems only fair and for the greater good. This compensates the poorer sections of society who really have little or no hope to gain financial success.
I understand Dr. Tatton's position, but one has to be wary of the fact that if taxes are too high for businesses, then those businesses will leave the country in favour of countries with lower taxes. Of course, it would be nice if we could legislate a worldwide tax structure, but this is simply not attainable. And I'm sure by the time it becomes attainable, companies will likely have opportunities to leave for another planet with more favourable tax structure.
Yes, you're right, Dr. McPhee. We must always be mindful of staying competitive. It is like a tightrope we must walk between compensating those less fortunate and being able to stay competitive in the market. Because if we fail to be competitive, then tax revenue will dry up, resulting in no money at all for the lower economic classes. So this is an extremely difficult balancing act.
Which leads to my next question. What is the future of taxation?
I believe you will see higher taxes in 50 years than there are today, just as we have higher taxes today than 50 years ago. We will need even more money for projects like high-speed transit, new roads, new technologies. Also, with an ageing population, medical costs could soar in the near future, resulting in higher taxes to support this healthcare system.
I think the future will be a lot like the present, walking the tightrope as Dr. Tatton mentioned. Where that takes us, I'm not sure. If I had to guess, I'd say higher taxes for the reasons Dr. Tatton outlined. However, another important variable to consider is whether free markers can really be...
That is the end of section 3. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
That's the end of part 3, and you have half a minute to check your answers. All right, let's take a deeper, closer look at these questions and these answers. We'll go through them together. And so as you see, I was kind of guiding you. I was showing you how to track, how to follow the audio in the IELTS listening. So firstly, you're paying very careful attention to the instructions. So the instruction says now you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26. So make sure that you're looking at those questions. You don't need to look at all of them because you're going to have some more time to look at those questions in a bit. So they give you a little bit of extra time. Part 4, no. Part 4, they only give you a little bit of time at the beginning and then that's it. Okay? So here, you look at the questions and you think critically. Very important tip, everybody. IELTS is a thinking exam. It's not an exam of recognizing words or saying, oh, I heard that word. Wait, yeah, I heard it. It was Pharaoh. Got it. No, it's a good start, but it's not enough to get a good score, especially not for part 3 and part 4. So an important tip to always keep in mind is IELTS is a thinking exam. You have to understand and interpret information, not just catch it. Okay? That's where a lot of people who sit the IELTS exam and maybe they didn't study enough or didn't really investigate of what the IELTS is or how it works, they think, oh, I just have to catch some answers. It's an oversimplification for sure. Okay? Good example here. Question number 21. If an Egyptian's income was 10,000, how much would be given to the pharaoh? So here I was listening for the answer and I heard that the pharaoh got 20% of the income. So how much is that? Anna says 2,000. Anahita says it's 10,000 multiplied by 20 divided by 100, which would equal 2,000. Right, Rupinder? Right, David? Aditya? Absolutely. So the answer here is 2,000. You know, a lot of candidates here would just write down 20%. They would get it wrong. Because it's not what percent would be given, it's how much. And they give you this number 10,000. So you have to do a little bit of math. Okay. So for those of you who got that and realized, hey, that's a thinking answer, it's 2,000, you got it correct. If you said 20, you have to be careful. This is what I mean by IELTS is not just catch the answer, but it's a thinking test. Okay. All right, Bushu Shorts, reading tips, that'll be next week, but for sure you can check out the website and always get tips there. Okay, all right, so the first reason mentioned for taxes, now here is where I'm listening for words too, right? So, you know, I did hear the word reason, and the speaker says there are 3 reasons for taxes first, right? So the first is revenue, and even if you missed it, you might be able to guess it as long as you know a little bit about taxation in English. So revenue means income. The government makes money through tax. That's how they make money to support the structure of society, right? So they pay their wages to do their work and they pay the necessary projects to maintain and develop society, right? So that's the goal of taxes. All right, when that doesn't happen, then they have to try to make money in different ways, selling resources or starting a war, for example, right? Unfortunately, Those are the harsher resolutions, right? Okay, the second reason for tax is known as, and now here they describe it. So here you have a little comma, and that comma means that this is the definition of this second reason. Commas are used to show definition in writing. You can use this strategy in your writing as well. So this is known, and Fuang and David and Anahita are absolutely correct. Aditya, you're right. It's called redistribution. Re means again. Distribute means to give out, right? So redistribution. So as many of you are aware, there are lots of programs in most countries, unfortunately not all countries, but most countries. There are lots of programs which take the tax revenue and then give some back from that tax revenue to people who need it. So when somebody loses their job, when somebody doesn't make enough money, when somebody has lots of children and they don't have enough time to earn through work, then you have child support, you have welfare and other social systems that support individuals who may not have the money to pay for themselves. So that's called the redistribution of money. Okay, Julia, I see you've become a member. That's awesome. Okay, and I saw that you got the premium course too. Good for you, Julia. That's some smart decisions. So make sure to use it every day. All right. No. Babu is asking, can I write redistribution? No, you can't. So it was a good question. Babu is asking, can I write this, like redistribution? No, that unfortunately, that would be considered wrong. So here you do need to know that the word redistribution is one word. In fact, Babu, just to help you with this, good question. I love questions. Okay, always ask me when you're not sure. So here's a good tip. Okay, for the IELTS exam. There we are. Know your prefixes. Okay, prefixes generally are not hyphenated. Okay, so tip: learn the common prefixes in English before your IELTS exam. It's very helpful. Okay, a prefix is syllable that usually means a preposition, like in, at, on, before, again. So it's usually some kind of a preposition or movement. Okay, so together or combined. So some of these are, for instance, like re. Okay, re meaning again, or co meaning together, or sub meaning under. Okay, if you have not done a purposeful review of prepositions, then now is a great time to do it. So definitely check out those prepositions, learn them, and then going back to your question, Babu, which was a good question. It is unusual. It is very rare. I have seen it. It does exist, but it's very rare. It is very rare to hyphenate a preposition. Usually it is a part of the word. Okay, so hyphenate means like a dash. Okay, so you have dash actually is a little bit different, but let's not get too technical. So hyphenate means like that. So you wouldn't write redistribution. Okay, you would write redistribution. Okay, So it does exist in rare cases, but generally not. Generally, when it's a clear preposition, it's going to be a prefix, and it's going to be a prefix that's a part of that word. Okay? All right, makes sense? All right, so learn your prefixes. Learn your prefixes, right? It's very useful for saving some marks in the listening section. Okay, so there you go. So no, this would most likely be marked as incorrect like that. It's correct like that. Okay. All right. Let's complete the flow chart. Okay, we've got 3 points here. 24, 25, 26. Make sure you pay attention to the numbers. Like when I'm looking at this, it's important to see that 24 is actually on the right here because it's a flow chart, and 25 is on the left here, right? And then 26. And always pay attention to the given information. So product, okay, that's an important one. They're talking about the product. On this side, it's allowed to go to the free market. On this side, it's subject to some kind of a tax. Okay? Now, the person talks about this and explains that we're talking about repricing, so giving a new price to products, okay, to compensate for the damage that those products can do in society, which makes sense, okay. Anahita says 24 is A, 25 is B according to David, and 26 is D according to David. Okay, once you have the answers, check if it makes sense, right? So product, A, revenue, nope, that's wrong. Allowed to go to the free market. So 24, no, that's not A. 24 is general goods. Okay, so 24 is E. All right. Anita says, yeah, it was a mistake, sorry. General goods are allowed to go to the free market. So most items that you buy, which are used in your everyday life, whether it's your toaster or a pair of new slippers, they just go to the free market. There you are. Don't hurt yourself. Here's the tax. Good. 25. So here the speaker says there are certain products that hurt society or can cause a lot of damage to society. One of those products is, for example, alcohol. The other example that was given is tobacco, right? But it's not here. Canada, by the way, for those of you who are wondering, Canada has some of the highest repricing taxes for alcohol and tobacco, and it's because of our social system. So because Canada has universal health care, it means everybody gets to see a doctor or gets medical help if they are injured or sick. Because we all pay our taxes for healthcare, for medical, we have extremely high taxes for those products that hurt people's health. So one pack of cigarettes in Canada is $20 or more. One bottle of wine in Canada is $15 or more. And the reason for that is because they're seen as products which hurt society or which can hurt people and cost tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical care, and people who use those products should be responsible for paying extra for medical care. That's the logic. Okay, everybody following? It's kind of one of those ones that are like, okay. Julia says it's the same situation in Europe too. Yeah, I agree with you, Julia. It's close. It's not quite as extreme. So medical care in Europe is not as universal as in Canada. You do pay a little bit more often from what I've found. And alcohol and cigarettes are a bit cheaper than in Canada. So it's close, but not quite as intense. I think in the Scandinavian countries like Finland, Norway, those places. Now, of course, what you're probably also realizing here is like, how does Adrian know so much about taxes? It's important to read general knowledge before your IELTS test. That will help you a lot in the listening section. Okay? All right. So careful with that. Now, the last one here was D, of course. It's repricing tax. So it's subject to repricing tax. US is very different, right? US, much cheaper for cigarettes, much cheaper for alcohol, but very expensive for doctors and healthcare. And if you hurt yourself and you don't have money, well, hope you have some tape and a stick to, bandage yourself up. So that's the other option. It's a bad joke, but seriously, that's the US. So US has a different belief system. They think you should be responsible. If you want to drink, get a bottle of wine for cheap. If you break your leg, pay for it. Okay? So you're responsible. Japan's kind of the same as well. All right. To each their own, right? David says, medical bills in the US is a nightmare. Nightmare is one word, David. One word. All right. So we had questions 27 to 29. These ones are some of the trickiest questions in the listening section. You need really good strategy. So listen up, everybody. Okay. You have 3 answers here. You have 27, 28, and 29. And these are what we would call a multiple choice. So it's like multiple choice, but even more difficult because it's like 3 multiple choice questions all mixed in to one bundle. They are definitely among the most challenging questions, especially in part 3 and part 4, where you have a lot of information. I mean, if you look at this question, right? It says, which 3 of the following are arguments in favor of lower taxes? And then they give you 6 choices. So 3 are right, 3 are wrong. Okay? And lots of information. It is easier to make money when you are already rich. Businesses will leave the country if taxed too harshly. Inheriting money requires no hard work. A country must be able to stay competitive in the global market. A worldwide tax structure can be implemented. Lower taxes in the end up benefiting everyone, including the poor. All right, lots of information there, and it's very difficult to review all of that before you hear the audio. In fact, it's virtually impossible. So the best strategy for this type of question, okay, strategy time. We call these the multiple choice. Because you have multiple questions for multiple choices. So it's the multiple choice question. I call it the MMCQ. Okay. First, take notes. Do not expect to read all the options in time. Okay, so take notes, and secondly, use logic. Okay, so pay careful attention. I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. All right, and you're right, Nipa, it is a tough one. It can catch anybody off guard if they're not sure what they're doing. Even a native speaker here, if they don't practice the IELTS, if they don't look at this kind of question, this can be really hard. They'd be like, whoa, what's going on? So much information, so quick. Right? And so here, you notice that I took some notes, and in the computer-based exam, you can do that on the piece of paper that they give you. So I'm really paying attention, first of all, to the question. It says, given in favor of lower taxes, because at first, the first professor gives reasons in favor of higher taxes, right? And then they give the reasons for lower taxes. So I'm really paying attention for keywords like lower taxes here, right? And then finally, the professor's like, well, with lower taxes, it's better because if there are a lot of taxes, then the business will go to another country with lower taxes. The other person says, yeah, they have to stay competitive in the market. And then they finally say, well, yeah, and if there's too many taxes, then eventually people run out of money because they're paying all of their money for taxes. And ironically, there's no taxes, right? So I have this information, and even if I don't get all of the answers right away, I can use that later when I have time to review to figure out what's going on. All right? Yeah, you can take notes, Julia. Absolutely. And it's a good idea to do that, especially for some questions like this one here. Okay. So just quick notes, right? Like lower taxes, leave country, competitive in market, taxes dry up. Okay, so here we have A. It is easier to make money when you are already rich. That's not a good answer because that's in favor of higher taxes, right? So higher. Okay, so it doesn't make sense. It's not logical for lower taxes. Businesses will leave the country if taxed too harshly. That sounds exactly like what I wrote in my notes, so I'm going to choose that one. That one looks good. Okay. Inheriting money requires no hard work. I didn't hear any information about that. At least I didn't. So I just heard it's easier to make money when you have money. So that wasn't really talked about. So that one doesn't look all that good either. Okay. A country must be able to stay competitive in the global market. Okay, that's kind of the same concept as B, so it makes sense. It's logical. So definitely D also makes a lot of sense to me. Okay. A worldwide tax structure can be implemented. Not yet, but we will need one. Absolutely. There will be local taxes and there will be a global tax in the future. I strongly believe that. If humanity survives its own challenges, then we will become one global community at the highest level. And that global community will need a taxation system, which is not possible today. And those professors say that. Okay, so again, use your logic, right? Does anybody pay global tax? Anybody send $100 to United Nations or some global organization for their global annual tax? I hope not, because it doesn't exist yet. So if you did, somebody's tricking you. All right. Countries kind of do. So we have these kind of global funds that countries kind of pay into these days. The EU kind of has this system now where they have their pooled money. It's a somewhat akin to a EU tax, if you will. But we don't really have a global taxation system yet. We will once people figure out that that's the solution. But it takes time. A lot of people are going to have to give for that. Okay, so worldwide tax structure is not, it cannot be implemented yet. We will need a world leader. Any volunteers that will say, hey guys, let's stop all this craziness. Let's save the planet. Let's save the environment. Let's create a global tax structure. And let's all work together for everybody's benefit. Right? Okay. Okay. So last one left, F. Okay, it's got to be the right one. Lower taxes in the end up benefiting everyone, including the poor. Can, yeah, absolutely, especially if people use money wisely. Okay, so here the answers were B, D, and F. If you got those, you got all correct. B, D, F. Okay. Now, same thing for this last question. It's asking you, what do the speakers believe about taxes in the future? Both of them say, again, you have to listen for the answer. So don't think the answer will jump out at you. That's dangerous, okay? Those candidates who think the multiple choice answers just pop out like pow, doesn't happen because they're paraphrasing. They're not using the same words often, so you have to listen for the answer, okay? So here they give you C, and I see a lot of people are saying C, it's higher. Yeah, and logic, right? I mean, if you ask most people say higher. And in some ways, when we do have a global tax structure, that probably will be the system is very high taxes, especially to try to save the environment. It's going to cost us a ridiculous amount of money. It already is costing us a ridiculous amount of money to save the environment, and we will all have to work together. So don't be surprised if us, our children, our grandchildren will spend 80% of our money trying to save the environment. Because if we don't, guess what? We all die. All right. So positive notes, positive thinking. So high taxes in the future, right? Okay. Section 4. I believe in humanity. All right. I do. I think we're amazing. I think we just forget that sometimes. Rupinder says, I got 9 out of 10 in that part. That's awesome. If you're getting more than 8 for part 3, you're doing good. If you're getting less than 6 in part 3, you really have to figure out what's going on. Okay? All right. Let's jump to part 4. So again, we're going to go back to our website. Once again, for those of you who are like, where is he right now? This is aehelp.com, okay? And for those of you who have the free version of the course, you can see the big red buttons even in your My Student account that says join the premium package. So to get access to this audio material and these exams, you do need to have the premium version. Of course, we all need to eat. We pay taxes. So it's a good investment of your money. This is going to be CD 3 track 4 because it's part 4. So let's listen and answer. Again, do not put your answers in the chat. We will go through the answers like we just did for part 4 at the end, okay? And I'll give you some more tips and strategies. Here we go, everybody.
Now turn to section 4. Take some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Listening section 4. You will hear a lecture about English scientist Isaac Newton. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Today we are going to discuss the life and achievements of the famous English scientist Sir Isaac Newton. Many consider Newton to be the most brilliant man to have ever lived, and many consider his achievements the greatest ever achieved by one man. Newton himself was not so sure, as he famously told his followers, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." While it may be true that he built upon the foundation of scientists before him, he still managed to see further than anyone else had, and to this day his accomplishments stand the test of time. Isaac Newton was born in England in 1643. He studied at the King's School in Grantham from age 12 to 17. After leaving school, his mother tried to make him into a farmer, but that was not going to be sufficient for young Isaac. A year later, in 1661, on the recommendation of one of his teachers at the King's School in Grantham, Newton was admitted to Trinity College in Cambridge, where he eventually became a teacher 6 years later. Newton is perhaps most famous for his work on gravity. A well-known story says that Newton realized the nature of gravity while he was sitting under a tree and an apple fell on his head. This story may or may not be true, but the underlying principle is valuable. Newton made the astonishing discovery that the same force that makes an apple fall to the earth also makes the earth revolve around the sun and the moon revolve around the earth. Until this time, scientists such as René Descartes and Gottfried Leibniz had believed that the planets moved in some sort of matter, something they called an ether. Newton demonstrated that no such ether was required. Descartes and Leibniz also had little explanation for why apples fall to the earth. Newton's theory accounted for this almost perfectly. During the 20th century, Newton's theory came under attack by the German physicist Albert Einstein, whose theory of relativity was said to replace Newton's theory of gravitation. This is simply not true. Einstein's theory is a landmark achievement in science, but it did not replace Newton's theory, it merely improved it. To picture this, think of a smooth ball, perhaps a billiard ball. In this experiment of the mind, Newton tells us that the ball is smooth. However, Einstein says that the ball has small imperfections, dents, cuts, and scrapes. Who is right? The answer is both of them. Newton is correct on a macroscopic scale. When we look at the ball from a distance, the ball is smooth. However, Einstein is correct as well. The ball does have imperfections. He is correct on a macroscopic and a microscopic scale. Another of Newton's important achievements is the reflecting telescope. Previously, Galileo had used lenses to construct his telescope, but Newton was the first to use mirrors in a telescope. Today's telescopes are almost all made of mirrors as opposed to lenses, which again speaks to Newton's brilliance. There are a number of reasons the mirror is an improvement over the lens in telescopes. First, mirrors do not warp as easily as lenses do, and by that I mean that lenses can lose their shape in hot or cold weather quite easily. Second, telescopes with mirrors take up less space because of their shorter focal distance. Third, telescopes with mirrors can be built far larger because the mirrors themselves can be built larger. An achievement of Newton's that must not be overlooked is Newton's discovery of calculus. Although the discovery was not without controversy, Gottfried Leibniz also claims to have invented calculus at approximately the same time. Nobody really knows the truth, but it is accepted that they discovered it separately. In any case, it was a brilliant achievement by both scientists. Newton died in March 1727, and his body was laid to rest at Westminster Abbey in London, in a famous above-ground tomb. He was 84.
That is the end of section 4. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
Awesome. Check those answers, students. Check for spelling mistakes. Make sure you didn't make any mistakes with reading the questions or the instructions. Okay, that's very important. Just stop the audio here on the website, and then we'll go back and answer these questions. Okay, so part 4, the last part of the listening. As you heard, one significant difference here is it's just one continuous flow. There's no break in kind of the middle of the audio. With the other parts, you have a little bit of break, and then you look, and then you answer. With part 4, it's just continuous. Fuang says a green apple fell on Newton's head. Domenico says that's an awesome story. It is, Domenico. Some people believe that Isaac Newton was maybe the smartest person to ever live, because a lot of what he wrote and created has really changed humanity. Okay, all right, well, let's take a look at the life of Sir Isaac Newton. Okay, so first of all, the first tip is positioning, right? So we're listening for his name, Isaac Newton, and we're listening for this date, 1643. So 380 years ago, Isaac Newton was born, right? So 380 years ago, Isaac Newton's born, and we hear this date, and we know we're about to hear his life story. And then we do hear this, studied at King's School in Grantham. Listening for these names, like King's School in Grantham, is also a good idea. They can't really change that. They can't paraphrase it. They can't use a synonym for it. So generally, you will hear those names in the audio, okay? So he's at King's School in Grantham from the age of 12 to 17. Yes, very nice. So for those of you who got that, it was for question 31. So in this case, in your answer booklet, if you're doing the paper-based exam, you just do 12 comma 17 and you're good. Okay. In the computer-based, it's usually a drag and drop. So they would have like 1217 there, or you have to quickly type it in. Okay. And then he leaves school, and his mother is like, hey, Isaac, strapping young lad, you should be Anahita says, a farmer. Very inspiring story for those of people who are like, I'm not going to be a farmer, I'm going to be the greatest scientist in history. I don't think Isaac actually thought that. He just thought, I want to use my brain. A little bit more than my hands. So he leaves school. Mother attempts to make him a farmer, like that. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. 1661. young Isaac here. What is he? He's 17, 18 years old. Yeah, he's 18 at this point, or going on to 18, right? On the recommendation of his teachers, he's admitted to Trinity College in Cambridge. 6 years after starting, Newton becomes a teacher there. Very good. Yeah, he's smart, obviously, very good at what he does. He's a teacher. Great. Many of you got that. Good. Proper noun, or sorry, it's a common noun, not a proper noun. So just all small t's. Teacher. Okay. You can use all capital letters in the listening, but if you're, especially for those of you doing the paper-based exam, it's much slower to write all capital letters for most people, unless that's what you're practicing. Okay. Now, choose your answers from the box and write the letters into A to D in the question. Again, here you have to listen to the story and figure it out. Now, once more, students, or once again, you do need a bit of common information about world history. If you haven't learned about some of the most famous scientists in human history, I would definitely say Google it. Okay, so tip. Google some common information, especially taught in the West. So, but you know, some individuals, even in the East or West, doesn't matter where they're from, South or North, scientists, women, men, Marie Curie, for example, Polish scientist, right? They're very famous historically for all of humanity, for their contributions, right? So you need to know that. For example, the 50 most important scientists in human history. Okay, whether it's Archimedes of ancient times, or whether it's Nikola Tesla of modern times, and I don't mean the Tesla car, right? Or whether it's Einstein. You need to know these people, okay? You need to have a little bit of information about them, right? Okay. So learn that, all right? Okay, so here we're looking at Galileo, Newton, Descartes, Leibniz. So we're looking at Italian, English, French, German, Austrian scientists, right? So mostly European scientists in this case, but not just, okay? Be careful. They'll take scientists from other parts of history and other parts of the world as well, okay? So learn a little bit about them. It's good practice, good common knowledge, all right? Good knowledge of history in our past. Okay, so Galileo, Newton, Descartes, Leibniz, Einstein. Good. Believed that planets move in an ether. Listening carefully, you learned that the answer for this was C. It was Descartes and Leibniz. And he slows down and emphasizes this. He says, they believed it moved in some kind of a matter, like some kind of an ether. It's like a liquid. We're all in some kind of a jelly in a soup, right? Okay, and then 35, developed a theory which was thought to replace the earlier theory of gravity. Now again, as long as you have a bit of knowledge of history, you know that the only person who that could be is Einstein, because Einstein is the only person who lived after Newton, and so logically it can only be Einstein's theory that can replace the theory of gravity. I even put it up there, the theory of relativity, E equals mc squared, right? So D. In the experiment of the mind tells us the billiard ball is smooth. So that would be Newton, B. And used mirrors instead of lenses in the construction of a telescope. Use not mirrors. Pay really careful attention to those negatives. Use not mirrors, but lenses. Lenses are actually the earlier types of telescopes, of course, and the earliest person in this list is Galileo, so that would definitely be A. Okay. So Galileo was the last one. All right. For those of you who got it, Fuang, Ahmed, Anna, very nice. Okay. Logic, previous information, and paying careful attention to what they're saying. That is what will help you. If you're not clear on vocabulary, check vocabulary, but you don't need to know all the words to get the right answer. You just need good test strategy. Okay? All right, these last few. Let's take a look. So then the speaker talks a little bit more about telescopes and about calculus, right? So we know Newton for gravity. Newton wasn't just famous for gravity, he was famous for many other aspects of mathematics and physics. But gravity, of course, being like the apple, right? So we kind of lose some of that other very important information. So telescopes with lenses cannot be built as large as telescopes with mirrors because large lenses tend to lose shape, David. That's right. Or the other answer that you could have given is warp. Warping means that you lose shape. Warp or lose shape. Exactly. Very nice, Nipa. Good job, Rupinder. Okay. Telescopes with mirrors take up less space because of their reduced focal distance. That's right. Good job, David. Focal distance. And you actually know that when you think about if you've ever seen telescopes and you look, we still have both. We still have lens telescopes and we still have mirror telescopes. You will notice that lens telescopes tend to be like, maybe some of you have seen this. So lens telescopes tend to be really long and kind of narrow like that. Okay. And mirror telescopes tend to be really pudgy and short like that. Okay. So if you're ever walking past a store that's selling telescopes and you're into astronomy, check it out and you'll see, oh, that's a lens telescope because it's long and narrow, and oh, that's a mirror telescope because it's short and stubby and kind of chubby. Okay. All right. So focal distance. Focal distance means the focusing distance, right? Of how much we need to focus to get sharp. Okay. Okay, Domenico is sharing with us the equation for time dilation. Very good, Domenico. Yes, a lot of modern day physics and science is built on those theories of gravity and relativity. Okay, so number 40, which statement is true? And here again, I was just listening for the answer and I took some notes. So I wrote down Newton and Leibniz discovered calculus at the same time separately. Newton and Leibniz discovered calculus together? No, it was separately, right? Newton and Leibniz discovered calculus separately during the same time period. That looks right. Newton and Leibniz discovered calculus separately while working at the same university. I did not hear that. So the best answer is this one here. Fantastic. Okay, good. So the answer was B. All right, students, how did you do? We're on to the next practice test there, so we're going to leave that for a future. What did you get from 40? If you were here last week and you did part 1 and part 2 as well, you should have your numbers. Anna says, I got 30. 30 is quite good, Anna. I think that's a band 7. I will check it out though in a second. Okay. Students, we do have a score calculator for you on the website at aehelp.com. Okay, on the bottom, there's a score calculator. The URL is this here. I'll put it into the chat there for you. There's the score calculator. You can check it out. So Anna says 30. Yeah, Anna, 30 is a band 7. Okay. Rutu says 25. It's a band 6. Janelle says 34. It's a band 7.5. Afzalbek says, I got 37 between last week and this week. 37 is an 8.5. Very good, yes. You need a 39 or a 40 for a band 9. You can only make one mistake for a band 9. Okay, so Domenico 38 would be an 8.5. Domenico, you get one more correct, you get a 9. Okay. Anahita says 18 out of 20 on paper, but 17 out of 20 on YouTube. Okay. Nipa says 35. I believe a 35 is an 8. Yes. Okay, so you got to get really, you got to get a lot of them correct for those high band scores. All right. Yes, Babu. All right, so again, that's on the website. Students, the website has all of our practice exams. There's 6 of them. We're working on releasing another 4. We will get that done as soon as possible. You can click the big red button to join our premium IELTS package. For general IELTS, it's gieltshelp.com. Again, you can click that big red button there to join the premium IELTS package. You kind of see above my head there. Students, tomorrow I am back. And by the way, good job, everyone. Good job, okay? I'm back tomorrow with speaking part 2 and part 3. Part 2 will be for channel members, and then we'll do speaking part 3 for everybody. Make sure to show up on time, practice, join the volunteering. We will be speaking with each other tomorrow, as well as looking at tips and strategies. Fuang, really get ahead of the curve. Try to install a VPN, try some different locations, test it out with a couple of people online. Make sure your microphone and all of that works tomorrow, okay? Visit the websites, aehelp.com, gieltshelp.com. These are our websites. They power these live classes. You can sign up. It doesn't cost a lot. You get lifetime membership. It's not a subscription. We don't want to take your money every month. We just want to take it once. And then tomorrow, join the speaking class. I hope to see you all there. Thank you, Carolina, for moderating. I think Umra was in the class earlier, or maybe that was the last class. Thank you, moderators. You're always so awesome. And thank you, viewers. Thank you, members. I hope that you come back and check us out again tomorrow. Have a great rest of your Friday and a good start to Saturday. I'm Adrian. Much love to all of you wherever you are. Bye for now.